Hello, hello, and welcome to In the Spotlight, where we shine a light on entrepreneurs, SMEs, and innovators. I am so happy that this is our first spotlight of 2024, and I am absolutely delighted to be joined by the wonderful Beth Sherman, Emmy-winning writer. Beth and I actually met at a Speaker Awards last year, 2023. I'm Maxine Crow, your host, as you know, and I've been excited. I've been trying to get Beth on this show for the last. It's going to be more than like 6 months, Beth. Honestly, but you are here finally. Welcome.
Thanks. Thanks so much for having me. And here's to the power of simply talking to the person sitting next to you, because I think that's how we met. We had just were sitting next to each other in at a talk and struck up a conversation. Strangers are nice sometimes. I don't care what my mom said. Strangers can be fun.
Yeah, well, gone with the stranger danger. It's just like, what do you mean? We're adults. We're okay.
Yeah.
But Beth, just tell us. I'd love you to introduce yourself and just tell us about your journey and how you got into writing and your speaking and your humor. I'd love to hear that.
Sure. I'm a comedy writer by trade. I've worked in the U.S. I counted it up. It's 27 years. I've been a paid comedy writer, and what that means for me is I worked on a lot of what in the US is called comedy variety, mostly late night shows, which in the UK you'd sort of consider Graham Norton, but most of them are 5 days a week or 5 nights a week in the US. So I wrote for uh, the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, Letterman. I was at Ellen for a few years. I write for a lot of award shows. I've written for the Academy Awards and the Screen Actors Guild Awards and a lot of shows like that. Um, and I've also written for a lot of shows I would not brag about. Those those are the names that people want to hear. There's a whole laundry list of shows that went, well, they were fine. It's a living. Um, and along the way, I also did stand up for 15 years. I really love that. And over the past few years ago, my partner and I moved to London. My partner is English. And since I've been here, I have been doing a lot of speaking on the power of humor for connection. Um, Midway through all of something that's overlapped the TV career and the speaking is I have uh, well, it used to be a side business, but it's really grown as a speechwriter for people who are not in the entertainment industry. So I do a lot of ghostwriting for personal and professional speeches. I've ghostwritten hundreds and hundreds of wedding speeches, father of the bride speeches, best man speeches, and so the professional skill that I developed over my comedy writing career and over the speech writing is really I can be funny in someone else's voice. And what I learned from that, and what's always struck me about that, and what I've always loved, is the power of humor for connection.
Mhm.
So now on stages, that's what I talk about. I speak to speakers on how they can use humor to engage their audience, but I also speak to managers and workplaces on how they can use humor as a way to build their teams. And it's not just banter, it's literally just having an attitude where um, you can laugh at yourself every once in a while, and it's really effective. I mean, humor is great for all sorts of things, but it really releases tension, and it's a great tool to have.
So, so that's really fascinating because when you talk about humor in the workplace, and there's some really stressful situations. So I'm in the facilities management industry. So we're with clients. They have buildings to maintain and look after, and there's operational teams that are responsible 24/7 for ensuring the lights are on, ensuring that they have food, ensuring that they're clean, they're secure. So how would you inject humor into that kind of environment? So could you give us us in the audience an example of what you could do for us?
Sure. Well, I think in those terms, because one on one, the person who's walking down a hallway in the middle of the night to clean it while the workers are out, that is sort of a different thing. But I think in a leadership position and for teams, I think that it's a great stress reliever, and how a leader handles stress in front of their team, and if they can handle things that go wrong, because inevitably they do, if that leader can understatement is a comedy technique. So, well, that didn't go as well as we'd hoped. I mean, just really um, giving notes, giving constructive criticism that has some lightness to it.
Yeah.
To and I've been in so many. I've worked at places where the people at the top handled setbacks just with anger and frustration. And while you can't help how you feel, you can help how you handle it publicly.
Yeah.
You can try to lead by example and acknowledge what's wrong, but maybe throw a little truth in there and maybe get a laugh from your group as well.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lady called Vicky O'Harrell. She's commented and said, "Oh, you're great at it, just great at the humour." So, thanks, Vicky, for your comment there. And do feel free to post comments if you're watching live, and also afterwards if you're watching the recording back. So, tell us about your journey, Beth. In that you said that there's a crossover now. So you've gone from the comedy writing, the script writing, and now to the speaking. So just talk about what your direction of travel is now and what you want to share.
Well, often my direction of travel is the wrong direction down the road, because I still cannot get used to driving on the left. Um, so it's just trying to not drive into oncoming traffic is what I try to do quite often.
We still need good humour, so just don't be doing anything silly.
I'll stick to public transportation. I took enough lessons to actually get my license here, but
Yeah.
don't worry, the streets are safe. I'm on the bus or the train.
I was going to say before you answer that, part that thought for a second. James Bargeron, he says more leaders need to chill out and learn to use humor and connect with people instead of thinking business is all serious all the time. And then
Well, we're being heckled. No, that's a great point, because when things get tense, I mean, humor, if you think about the nature of humor itself, literally a joke's made up of two parts. A joke's made up of a setup and a punchline. And that setup creates tension. And in a joke, it's a relative tension, but it's still, why did the chicken cross the road? I don't know why. I need to know. And then you have the punchline, which relieves the tension by giving the answer. So, if you can relieve tension in a meeting where something has gone wrong, everyone gets called into the room, there's a pretty big elephant in the room.
Yeah.
But if you can just sort of acknowledge that elephant in the room, it's like, well, I don't think there's going to be cake at this meeting. I mean, anything. And any tiny little thing, though, that just takes a little bit off the top and reduces it so everyone has a laugh, everyone can take a breath, and now there's maybe a little room here. So instead of everyone being at a 9.5 or a 10,
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to function at a 7 than it is at a 9.5. It sounds so easy, but we've all been in situations where it's just unrelentingly grim and tense, and the pressure is immense, and it's not healthy.
Mm.
And life is absurd. Laugh at yourself. Find a way to laugh with people.
So just go. Thank you so much for that. So, talk about your direction of travel now. So,
sorry.
But no. In terms of your speaking and what's coming up for you in the future.
Well, the speaking is the newer part of what I do, and I really love it. And it came out of working one-to-one with clients, because when I was in entertainment, everyone was like me. God help the world, but but people were like me and had similar experiences and a similar view of the world and a similar skill set. So, it's sort of, I guess, like being in the military. You come out of it and you think everyone doesn't get up at 6 in the morning and go for a 5K run. I mean, so working one-to-one with clients, I found myself explaining a lot of what I do instinctively, and I assumed everyone else did because I come from not just a profession, but a culture that has a good sense of humor. I mean, a family, I guess.
Mm.
So that made me realize that there was a lot that I could share, and as I've started sharing it, I've gotten a great response. So it's given me a lot of passion to sort of go out and talk to groups about how they can add humor to their everyday life, how to be funnier and more engaging. Because the humor is, if you can make someone laugh, that's emotion. So,
Yeah.
and emotion, it's hard to hate someone who makes you laugh. It's possible, but it's harder.
Yeah.
And just if you can make someone laugh, that laughter is emotion, and emotion is what you need to build trust. And you need trust if you want people to take any sort of action. And even if that action is, it can be buying something from you or taking your direction, or it could be as small as listening to you for another 30 seconds. I mean, especially now when especially my country is so divided.
Yeah.
We all think that we're very, very different, but if you can get a laugh or establish some kind of common ground, then at least there's a chance that the conversation will continue, and we're sort of slapped in the face with a reminder of, okay, well, we agree on that. We agree that that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And talking about this stuff, I mean, it sounds like I want everyone to just go out and tell jokes, and it's not that. It's
No.
really, to me, what's funniest, and you'll see really in any comedy, truth is funny. What comedians do, what the best movies do, what the best comedy does, it's just sort of observing life and then reporting back. So truth is funny, and if you want to make someone laugh, and we all do it, you all do it in your everyday life, you're just not aware that you're doing it. You
Mm.
sort of do it in your personal life, but your professional life feels like it's something different, so you don't do it. What we all, it's truth is funny, and if you think about truth, and there's two ways. I lost my train of thought all of a
It's
sudden.
okay. It's okay. Carry on.
Truth is funny. I have ADD. That's occasionally funny. But truth
Before,
is funny, of course.
no, I was gonna say, Vicky was saying, what's the balance of using humor and still making sure that the message lands? So that's probably going to bring us back on point. That's interesting.
Well, it's relative to the subject that you're talking about. So I like to think of humor as seasoning. So everything needs if you think of it as salt, everything needs a little bit of salt. Some things benefit from having a lot of salt. So you don't necessarily need to turn yourself into Chris Rock, but if you can just add a little dusting of funny to the way you live your life, or the way you lead your team, or the way your office is, or the way you speak to an audience, it's it adds engagement, and it adds balance, especially for people who speak about things that are heavier or are in jobs that are heavier
Mm.
emotionally. I mean, the people with the best sense of humor are generally, I mean, if you talk to people in the military, they have a very good sense of humor. It's very dark, but I mean, speak to a firefighter or someone that works on an ambulance, they see life with a front row seat, but they tend to have a very good sense of humor, and they use it to cope as a tool for resilience.
Yeah, yeah. I do actually recall. So in facilities and people in this industry, it is quite relentless sometimes, and as much as passionate as we are about it, there are some stressful situations. And I did write the other week about there was a project that was happening, and I'd used this. There was this Arnold Schwarzenegger I think it was Aliens where they're like, he goes, "Get in the chopper." And so every time, I'm not going to name any names because they know who they are, but any time that the client called, we would all go,
Yeah.
"Get in the chopper," and it was so funny. But it just relieved that whole tense situation that we were going into, and it did help. I'm gonna admit it did help a lot.
Well, it's a bonding moment, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, you bonded with people, but that one joke is something that creates a connection between you and your coworkers, and it changes the atmosphere instantly from, oh God, we got to deal with this guy again, to, okay, well, at least there's a little energy to it. At least there's a laugh before, and there'll probably be a laugh afterwards, because as soon as you hang up the phone, you're not going to believe what happened this time, right?
Yeah.
That's a team, that a foundation of a team.
And it was so long ago as well. It does bring back some good memories. It really does. So Ben, tell us about so in terms of speaking engagements, do you do workshops? How can the audience reach you, and just talk about what they look like, so we can kind of imagine how you do things.
What my audience looks like?
No, I
Well,
think
they're all taller than I am. I'm only 5'1".
You didn't seem that short when I was sitting next to you.
Well, that's the secret of my success. I just stay seated, and then people never know that I only come up to their navel. If someone wants to get a hold of me, I'm at the very cleverly named website bethsherman.com. My name is Beth Sherman, and that takes you through all the different, the importance of using humor in work and in team building, and for resilience, and the different talks that I give. I also do workshops around that. If you need a team, if you have a team building day, I do workshops around that, where your team will get to know each other a bit better, have a lot of laughs, and also take away tools that will help them be more resilient, and I just have a better workplace environment. I've got some one-to-one services where I work with speakers or anyone that does any sort of presenting professionally. And I do that for those one-to-one. I love doing that because that takes me back to my comedy writing roots. In TV writing, in the US at least, we do a comedy room. So one person writes something, and then it gets brought into the room and we punch it up together. Punch up is just adding humor to things. And finding comedic opportunities and exploiting them to make it as funny as possible, because one person is funny, but as a group, we all see things from a different angle. And you also have sort of an instant audience to know if something works or not. And for the one-to-one services, you can book me for an hour and send me the draft of your presentation or a video of you giving the presentation. And we can just go through it top to bottom and find the comedic opportunities that are organic to the presentation and that feel authentic to you. Because it's all well and good if you send me something and I sit alone and write a bunch of gags for you and a bunch of jokes for you. But if they don't sound right coming out of your mouth, if they don't match you, then it's kind of a waste of both of our time.
Yeah.
Because I want to give people things that they can really use. And there's nothing more awkward, because you see people go up and just do jokes or puns or dad jokes that they've put in because they want to be funny. They want that engagement, but they don't land because it feels forced. Either it doesn't quite fit with the material, or it doesn't quite fit with the personality of the person delivering it, or it doesn't, it's not really the taste of the audience. You have to know your audience.
There was that. What was it the other week with the presenter on one of the awards? Was it the
Golden Globes?
The Golden Globes and the Taylor Swift moment that kind of landed very, just wasn't funny, was it really? Or did you?
Well, that joke in particular didn't bother me, but she clearly didn't like it. But that joke to me that particular joke felt like that was on the NFL. But it doesn't matter if your audience doesn't care. To me, I think the bigger issue there was that the audience didn't know Joe Coy. Joe Coy was the presenter, and he's a huge comedian, and he's got a
Yeah.
podcast, and he's got millions of fans, and he's a very funny guy. It's not like, certainly not lack of talent, but he's not an actor. This is the Golden Globes. It's the top of Hollywood. It's everybody who's anybody, and he, to them, simply by nature of not being in that world, is an outsider, as opposed to a Ricky Gervais, who can get away with a lot more because he's a writer and a director and an actor. So there's just a familiarity.
Yeah.
It's as if, look, I will take uh, I will take jokes from friends that if a stranger said to me, I would think, what? There's a huge difference between sort of ribbing your friends and ribbing a stranger. So I think maybe just bad casting maybe
In
it's
that
just a
way.
bad fit in that case. I think, sort of a little self-awareness might have been lacking also when I work with, one of the things I think is truth is funny, and one way of delivering that truth is self-awareness.
Mm.
And I think it would have helped him. I mean, if I were him going out there knowing they don't have any idea who I am. I mean, I'm big, but I'm big in a different pond. I'm
Mm.
big in a different world. That's all. Some of them may know me, but I'm not. eh, That would have been the first thing I would have acknowledged. I would have. You don't have to be. You don't have to insult yourself, but you sort of have to acknowledge what people are thinking and have the self awareness to know that Meryl Streep might not know who you are. um, and so, is there a way that you can acknowledge that in a funny way?
Yeah.
And that goes a long way. I mean, geez, doing stand up, I did gigs all over the U.S. I did all over the U.S. I did them places where I would see the audience walking in, loading in,
Yeah.
and I would think, given the chance, um, these people, any one of these people, would happily make me the victim of a hate crime. Here's the little lesbian with the short hair, and I'm somewhere in a rural area, but if you get up on stage and you just acknowledge the difference, or you acknowledge what people might be thinking, and certainly not in an insulting way, but just acknowledging I'm out of place here,
Yeah.
but then expressing a curiosity or an appreciation for what they have. I mean, I would always just talk about the Waffle House. If anyone's from the American South, the Waffle House is, uh, it's the oh gosh, I don't know what's the best roadside food that you would get here. The best roadside,
McDonald's.
well, sort of a local McDonald's, but I had a Waffle House joke whenever I'd walk up there. Go, sort of the idea that I didn't fit in, but I love being there because there's the Waffle House and they serve hash browns 1,000 different ways. So I think one of them was smothered, covered, and chunked.
Oh wow!
Uh,
Mind you, my daughter, she's working in a pancake house at a Center Parks place, and they have like 40 different types of pancakes. So I think pancake house is quite unusual because it's got lots of different ingredients. But
Lots and lots of things, but just sort of acknowledging, look, I'm out of place here, but then sort of a small sort of gratitude
yeah,
for what I'm enjoying.
yeah,
Because they think that I don't, they would look at me and think, well, she's going to be a snob and she's going to think we're a bunch of rednecks, which isn't what I thought. But we were judging each other. But if you can just immediately acknowledge that with a little bit of humor and a smile,
yeah.
it's great.
James loves loves the Waffle House once in a blue moon. Thank you, James. Do you know when you were talking, I was actually thinking about teams because there's a lot of us in industry, and we work with teams that are not only remote these days with that added complication of being remote, the technology now, and lots of things being online, but also the cultural. So, how do you overcome the cultural side of managing teams? and injecting that humor, because German humor is very different to French, very different to English. How do you combat that?
Well, I think that it also in humor is inherent. There's a curiosity that's inherent in humor, and wanting to know your audience. So to me, the best way is not to assume anything, but to have a curiosity about it. I mean, I personally, if I were working on a team that had international people, or people from countries different than mine, I would ask them what would be a funny joke, or in I don't know if I personally what's a funny joke in Germany is not a phrase I've ever said. Um, before, but she says, displaying her total ignorance. Um, but I think curiosity and a willingness to admit what you don't know,
Mm.
because that little bit of vulnerability is a way to, well, again, that sort of creates emotion. It opens up something and it gives someone a chance to teach you.
Yeah, I think it's a whole different language in itself, isn't it? Because it just, what you were saying then, it reminded me of a trip that I'd taken, and I was sharing with an American lady, and the it was a scene that happened where we were going out for an evening. You just bear with me with this, because she was
Sure.
saying, "Do I?" So I was in the room. I wasn't going anywhere. She was going out, and then she said, "Oh, do I need a cardigan?" And I'm like, "What? What?" She says, "Do I need a cardigan?" And I'm like, "Well, of course." And then I said, "Of course you're going to need your card to get in," because she was going out to get back in the room. So I was hearing, "Do I need your? Does she need her access card to get back into the room?"
Yeah.
She was going, "No. Do I need my cardigan?" I was just, and you're right about it creating emotion and bonding, because all these years later I still remember her. Kate, her name was. And Kate Schneider, if you're out there, lots of love to you. But this is going back so many years. But I think, do you find that humor also just creates that bond and that long lasting connection with someone as well?
It does. I mean, it's just it's a reference point that you can go back to, and it's a happy moment. I mean, we remember, and I learned this. My mom has passed, but she had dementia, and i- in learning about what she was going through and in trying to figure out ways to deal with it, I started, I discovered that a lot of the neuroscience behind it was that, because it was her short-term memory that was gone, but a lot of the neuroscience that's behind it is that memory is connected to strong emotion. So the things that she remembered were things that were connected to strong emotion. Unfortunately, a lot of it was how much her mother preferred her sister and that
Oh, dear.
anger. But lots of good things too. I mean, I got married and my mom was already not quite herself when I got married. But there were parts of that weekend that my mom remembered because it was strong emotion and it was joy. So I think there's a nature reason, not just the nurture reason, that we remember things that have strong emotion connected to it. And by the way, for anyone who's watching who isn't American, cardigan is what we call a jumper that buttons.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, so like a sweat. Yeah.
I
You're
mean,
right.
yes, and for any of the Americans, a jumper is a sweater. Sort of a jumper that sort of, yeah, opens and closes and maybe has a couple of buttons.
So, Beth, is there a book, podcast, or resource that has been particularly influential for you?
Well, in terms of humor, well, I grew up listening to comedy
Personally.
albums.
Mm.
I grew up listening to comedy records. I'm that old. I'm 50. They were records. I didn't listen to a lot of music, which became kind of a pain later in life when I had no cultural reference. But I was upstairs memorizing comedy albums, and some of them are behind me. But Lenny Bruce, Bob Newhart. Oh, Tom Lehrer's great. He did funny songs. and Bill Cosby. It was the '80s. We didn't know, but I absolutely loved his albums.
Yeah.
That was a huge influence on me because those albums were recorded live. And as someone who loved comedy, it wasn't just the impact of the jokes. The jokes were funny, but listening to the audience's reaction and that
Mm.
dialogue and timing, because even if it's just one person on stage in stand up or in any kind of presentation, it's a dialogue. You speak, the audience reacts, and listening to that just incredible chemistry that a comedian has with an audience to sort of let the laugh go to a certain point and then come in and then give tag the joke, add another joke on the joke, a little extra detail, and it continues. And that balance, that dance,
Yeah.
I fell in love with entirely. It genuinely changed the course of my life.
What was school like for you? As a because were you um, did you already know that this was going to be your calling even when you were going through school and
No, my parents were funny. My parents were very funny in different ways,
mm,
but I wanted to be I was pretty much invisible in school. Um, uh, Humor is also, of all the ways humor can be used, it's also a bit of a defense mechanism, and it's also a way to be accepted. And I was quiet and shy, but when I did speak, I mean, or when someone would come over to me or sort of be threatening or bullying to me, which also happened. I mean, in sort of, I guess, what is the usual degree. But I was quiet and shy, so I was a pretty good target because my family had a good sense of humor. I didn't realize I was doing it at the time, but I could diffuse that situation with humor.
yeah.
I mean, I learned the hard way that you can't get people to laugh you have to get the bully to laugh. If you get people to laugh at the bully, it just makes things worse.
Not a good idea.
it's it's easier to get people to laugh at the bully, but the consequences are more painful. But if you can make the bully laugh, if you can diffuse that situation, it's very helpful. But I was not class clown, nothing like that. It wasn't until um, I got to college or university and I found my tribe a little bit more. But really, it was when I graduated and I moved to Los Angeles to work in television, and I found my tribe a little bit more, people who had the same influences that I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh,
then when
that
I found stand up, when I found comedy writing and those rooms, that was for sure my tribe. And then when I found stand up, um, comedians are absolutely my tribe. It's can be difficult to have a real conversation with them, but if you want to laugh and if you want to see the world and if you need just all of those wonderful chemicals that happen when you laugh,
yeah. Yeah.
find some funny friends.
Well, I definitely did on that day. Thank God for the speaker awards. That's all I can say. And thanks for sitting next to me as well. Beth, are there any before we wrap up? Are there any final words of wisdom or encouragement that you have for our audience?
People come up to me all the time and tell me that they don't think they're funny. And you're funny. I guarantee everyone listening to this is funny, and you can make other people laugh because you do. I guarantee everyone, no matter how dry you think you are, you have made a loved one laugh. You made someone laugh around the dinner table. You make your kids laugh. You make your partner laugh. You make your friends laugh. It's all relative. You when it comes to being funny, you don't have to be Jerry Seinfeld. You just have to be that version of yourself. And so when you go into the office or when you step on a stage or just in front of the conference room to make a presentation, try to channel the person that you are with your friends. When you deliver material or when you think about when you're speaking to your team, try to be a bit more conversational. Try to imagine you're talking to people you like. But try to try you have that side of yourself already. Try to be conscious of that and try to have at least an element of that personality in your work life.
I'm not going to say any more on that. That has been a great piece of wisdom, and I am really looking forward to catching up with you this year. What's your next event? What's happening next for you, and where can people? Um, I know
I'm gonna
you've.
have some lunch. Um, I am. People can find me at the website. That's where to find
Yeah,
everything that's going on with me, or on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with anyone watching on LinkedIn. I mean, if you're watching on LinkedIn right now, it's even easier. But I'm always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn, and I do post, and I found that to be a great way to share bits and pieces as I sort of figure out how to share what I know.
yeah,
So I do share quite a few tips and tricks and ways to well, be funnier and more engaging in your own life.
I love that. Beth, thank you so much for being in the spotlight today. I've really enjoyed listening to you, learning about your journey, and also what's coming for you as well. And I'm really happy to promote and share far and wide. It's a beautiful gift that you are blessed with, and I have just been. It's been an absolute honor to have you on today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, it's you're a big liar, but it's been my pleasure. You're easily impressed.
I'm shallow. Oh my god! Who
My favorite kind of audience.
knew? I'll speak to you soon. Thank you. Take care.
My